This is a reading from the Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing every disease and every sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, also known as Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Philip and Bartholomew. Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector. James, son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus. Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans, but rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment, give without payment. The word of the Lord. In our scripture today, Jesus gives a very clear call. The harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few. And Jesus sends out the 12 into the harvest. And Jesus tells them to proclaim the good news, to cure the sick, to raise the dead, to cleanse the lepers, to cast out demons. And I would say that's quite a to-do list, really. Jesus is setting the bar high for us. And then he tells the disciples they may not take luggage or supplies or cash, but he also makes sure that they are equipped to do this work that they're called to do. Their training and knowledge was based on the time that they had spent with Jesus. They had spent the time with Jesus and watched him cure diseases and cast out demons and raise the dead. They had listened to his teaching and they had served at his side. They were equipped with a passion for the gospel message. They shared Jesus' compassion for the people. And they knew that they would have help. The Spirit of God would be with them. And the disciples finally were given authority over unclean spirits. Well, that sounds like some kind of superpower, but really I don't think it is. They were empowered by the Spirit of God, and Jesus trusted them to use their authority appropriately. And in other places in the Gospels, we hear about their successes and their failures as they went out into the world to proclaim the good news. Well, of course, this is our call too. We are called to go out into the world. And just like the disciples were called by Jesus that day, as disciples of Jesus, we also are called to proclaim the good news, to cure the sick, to raise the dead, to cleanse the lepers, to cast out demons. And we may not do it exactly the same way that those disciples did back then. But if we are followers of Jesus, this is our call too. Now, I'm sure in the past, you have all taken the gospel message of good news and practiced good works in the world in many different ways. Feeding the hungry, going on mission trips, teaching Sunday school, and lots of other things that you've done. But what about today? Today, this call to go out into the world and spread the good news. Can we still live this call during COVID-19? Really, I had to ask myself, how can we do that when we older folk are ordered to stay home by secular and religious leaders? It could be deadly to go out and spread the good news today. So what do we do? How do we answer this call today? Well, we can still do some things at home like we have been doing, making masks and working on quilts with Aller and praying for others and making financial gifts and the other things that you are already doing. But one thing we can do that I think is really important during this safer at home time is to prepare for the time when we can go out again. This safer at home time is a time to get ready for when we can go out into the world again. Some of you may remember a friend of mine named Nick that I mentioned once in the sermon. Nick has always been an inspiration to me. He was a faithful, lifelong Christian. And Nick grew up Catholic, attending church regularly all of his life. And as an adult, he got MS. And by the time I met Nick, he was transitioning from crutches to a wheelchair. And before long, he had no control over his legs at all. One day in church, Nick told me that when he came into church, his legs would twitch. He explained that they remembered that he was supposed to kneel in church, which he had done all of his life. Nick was so steeped in prayer that even his useless legs remembered the gift of prayer that Nick gave so generously. Nick was so faithful in prayer that his broken body didn't need to be directed what to do. It knew automatically what to do, even if it couldn't do it. A lifetime practice, a spiritual practice, meant he was always ready to be in prayer and to go out into the world as a man of prayer for others. And I think that we can all be like Nick. We can take this safer at home time for spiritual practice so that we can always be ready to follow God's call on our life. Like the disciples, we can let go. We can let go of our baggage and prepare to travel light. We can seek training and knowledge. We can spend time with Jesus in the gospel and see his amazing work again and again. We can read, learn, and inwardly digest the teachings of Jesus. We can find our passion for the gospel message and choose compassion for people. We can recognize that we have help. The Spirit of God is with us. This is a season to focus on spiritual practices. This is a season to equip ourselves so that when the time comes, we're ready to hit the ground running. And I think you know what most of those spiritual practices are that you do, and maybe some new ones you can take on. You can engage in spiritual reflection when you take a walk. You can breathe with intention, breathing in the Spirit and breathing out tension and anxiety. You can pray and you can meditate. You can practice silence and solitude, reflect on Scripture. You can work on loving yourself so that you know how to love your neighbor. And there's so many other things to work on. Everybody has their own needs, and you know what yours is. If we can engage in these and other spiritual practices so that when the time comes, without you even knowing it, these things are second nature, and they equip you for your work that God calls you to do. Like Nick, our legs will twitch in our souls. So Jesus calls us to proclaim the good news. And today we can do that by responding to people who have great spiritual needs and proclaim boldly because it is close to our hearts. If we are well prepared, we can cure the sick. And to cure the sick in spirit, your spirit needs to be strong and vital. If we are well prepared, we can raise the dead, those who are emotionally and spiritually dead. But to do that, your spirit must be vital and lively and overflowing. We can cleanse the lepers. We can make the untouchable in our society touchable. And we can cast out the demons of division and war and poverty and sickness. If we're well prepared, we can do all these things. And like the disciples, Jesus gives you authority too. If we're prepared and equipped, we can claim that authority. If we are practiced, like Nick, so practiced that it's natural for us to respond to Jesus' call without having to debate within ourselves, then we can stand boldly in that authority that Jesus has trusted us with. And if we are well prepared, we can give freely and generously all that love and vitality that has become a fundamental part of who we are. So today we've been given a big to-do list, one that requires us to be all that we get called to be. These commands we have been prepared and equipped to follow. And God goes with us as we proclaim the good news and cure the sick and raise the dead, cleanse the leper and cast out demons. Right now we can do some of these things on the phone or virtually, doing things safer at home. But sometime, hopefully not too long from now, when the time is right, we can go. We can go out into the world and take that gospel to those who will receive it. So for now, this is a time for practice and preparation to get ourselves ready to go out into the world and proclaim the gospel with a strong heart and a bold spirit. Amen. Our service continues with the Apostles' Creed.